Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give it another minute and then we'll get started.
Great, everybody.
Hi, Becky. Thank you all. While we're waiting for a few people to come in from the waiting room, just wanted to share some housekeeping items. I'll introduce the speakers in a bit when everybody has joined. But we just want to call your attention to the community values on the slide. Any more people in the queue, or we should get started, Alexi?
We'll let them in as they join, but everyone is popping in right now, so.
Awesome. Well, let us get started. Thank you all for joining. My name is Liliane Offredo-Zreik. I'm HBS MBA class of 2000. We're going to go and introduce ourselves in a couple of seconds here, but I really want to welcome our two speakers, Abby Levy. She's MBA class of 2001, and she's a managing partner and founder at Primetime Partners. And Linda Greub, MBA 1987, HBS, general partner at Avestria Ventures Management. Welcome, and thank you so much for doing this. As we usually do, and let me also just give you a heads up that we're going to have a fantastic roundtable in March, on March 12th. The topic is Hospital Without Walls, Enabling a Home-Based Care Ecosystem, with another HBS speaker who is also a doctor. But for now, let's focus on today. So let's get started with going around. If you like to put your year in rename yourself and put your year, that's always a nice thing. I know I have not done that. And then we'll just say, very, very quick word about ourselves so that we have time and we leave a lot of time for discussions. So once we've done that, I'll ask a few questions to our two speakers. Then we'll leave time for questions at the end from the audience, and of course, you can start putting your questions anytime in the Q&A or in the chat, actually, as the conversation is ongoing. So, all right. So I think I've already said I'm HBS 2000. I've done a lot of different things. One of them is founding a company in healthcare technology, which we recently sold. I do a lot of advisory work, and now I'm also beginning to I went back to HBS and got did the Women on Board program, and now I'm beginning to think of also board roles. Who wants to go next? Since you're going to leave, Gulum, can you introduce yourself, or?
I'll go next. Hi, I'm Deborah McConkey, and I'm MBA class of 79, so I've been around for a while. And I'm also chair of programming for the HBS Women's Alumni Association and on the board. This is such a great group. And my background, I've done a variety of things, but I've had also a consulting practice for many years. And many of the clients are in the health and wellness space. And I work on marketing strategy and customer acquisition and retention primarily.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gulum?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Gudum Williams. I'm class of 97. I'm an MBA class of 97. I used to be on the board. I timed out. It was the best 9 years. And most of my background is in professional services, 20 years at BCG. I had some healthcare clients there, but not many years since then. Recently, I have started investing as an angel investor through actually BCG Angel Investors. And I think somebody needs to go on mute. And one of my investments is in elder care. So so I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Liliane, for hosting.
Thank you, Gulum. I should have also mentioned that I'm on the board of HBS Women Association, and I also chair the marketing. So anyway, our president, Elizabeth.
Hello, everyone. Apologies, I have some background noise, so I'll mute after, but I'm Elizabeth Crable. And yes, as Liliane said, I am the president of HBSWA. So just delighted to work with this group of women, kind of putting these programs together. And I am actually very interested to hear this conversation. So I am an operating C-level executive for the hospitality and travel industry for the last 20 years. So one of the areas that's growing really fast in hospitality is medical, wellness, retreat type businesses, and healthcare as a travel destination business. So through a couple of the women in this group, I have actually learned about a lot of new brands that I am considering for future roles. So I'm really excited to hear kind of this conversation and understand what's happening with the overlap between destination, hospitality, and medical wellness. So that's it. And I'm based in New York and MBA 1999.
Thank you. Maybe each speaker can toss it to somebody else. Maybe Renata.
Hi, I'm MBA also 2016. I'm based out of New York. My background is actually in CPG and tech, building new business either in startups or within larger companies. I'm job searching right now, and the reason why I'm here is I'm super interested in the mental health space. So definitely want to listen and learn.
Thank you. Becky?
Hi, Becky Chandler. I'm class of 2001. I'm based in Chicago. I am a digital GM, so I run marketing, product, and operations, entire P&Ls. My most recent experience was with Bright Horizons, where I led their consumer marketplace. They're the leader in wellness, care, and education services for working families, and I'm trying to build on that experience.
Do you have your glasses?
Looking at health, wellness, elder care, et cetera, those types of industries. So kind of consumer services. All right, next, Rosie.
Hi everyone, I'm Rosie O'Donnell. I'm an MD and I've been a consultant for my career in biotech and working in a lot of gene therapy, gene editing, working with early stage companies to help them think about their pipelines and develop their pipelines from the science side into commercial opportunity. So thanks a lot. Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Let's see. Faith or Fatiha.
Yes, hello. My name is Fatia. I'm based out of Copenhagen in Denmark. I'm PLDA 2024, so very new to this community. I've had about almost 20 years of experience in different corporate organizations, both in professional services, but also within infrastructure here in Denmark and also internationally. And the reason why I'm here is that right now I'm actually considering to build a venture capital fund with another Harvard alumni that'll be focusing on companies that are founded or co-founded by women, specifically looking into the women's health and wellness sector. So I'm looking forward to joining this community.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
Shania? Oh, sorry.
Nope, I was just going to give the word to the next one. So let's go. Shania?
Thank you so much, and thanks for pronouncing my name correctly. Hi, everyone. I'm Shania Debu, MBA class of 2002. I run global marketing for the adult vaccines portfolio at Pfizer Pharmaceuticals. So that includes our COVID vaccine, our pneumococcal pneumonia vaccine, and our respiratory syncytial virus vaccine. It's exciting times. I have no dearth of activities to manage in crises these days with the transition of the US government, but I couldn't resist the opportunity to see my very inspirational friend, Abby Miller-Levy, whom I have known since we were 18 years old. So really looking forward to this chat.
And by the way, we look exactly the same.
Exactly. You know, it's like a day hasn't passed.
No, we all.
Better haircuts, but yeah. So let me toss it over to Jagruti.
Hi, everyone. Jagrati Oza. Really delighted. I've been trying to get Linda to participate in this panel for a long time, so I know she has really great information. And Abby, nice to meet you as well. I'm Jagrati Oza, class of 88. I've been in healthcare, primarily technology, data analytics, AI types of businesses for over 20 years. I just started my own LLC, Third Eye Ventures, Third AI, pronounced Third Eye Ventures. And I'm really interested in new models where technology, data analytics, AI, Gen AI now can be leveraged to really create new value. And I think there's tremendous potential, obviously, in healthcare to do that. And so I'm currently advising several innovative startups. I know there are lots and lots of them. So, you know, the context may or may not be tough for them to raise money, but I'm interested in learning more about fundraising, particularly through VCs in this context, and just delighted to be here. And I also co-founded and co-chaired this Women in Healthcare Roundtable, which has grown. I'm still in awe of the talent that we have on this group, and to have so many today in person is absolutely fabulous. So thank you very much, and look forward to the session. Oh, and let's see, Gabby.
Thank you for the intro. So I'm Gabby Cora. I've been at Harvard. I've done my second course, Women on Boards, where Lily and I were there for a great 1 week, and then I'm a product of GMP 35 in 2023. I've been a physician for 35 years, and I've done a little bit of everything within healthcare, including pharma. I did work at Pfizer too. Yes, so we were pretty busy with those vaccines back then, but also in the insurance industry, the military, and in doing consulting work. Having trained pretty much at the NIH in the early part of my career, but for the past 25 years, I've been quite involved in health and wellness overall. My first motto of a company I started in 2003 was the power of well-being. So really interested in that space. And I pretty much merged, I'm a psychiatrist by training. So I had focused on executive mental health and kind of created a bridge in executive coaching. So we were able to provide for care for everyone in the whole spectrum of health and disease to health and well-being as well. So interested in everything that has to do with health and well-being. Abby, did you go already, or I don't think you chatted? You introduced yourself yet?
Well, Abby's the featured speaker, so we're.
So she will go last. Sorry. I don't know if there's anyone who's missing.
Yes, Laura has not.
Okay. Laura, go for it.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Yeeses, MBA class of 88. I am the CEO of Bone Health Technologies, and we the first FDA treatment.
You're cutting off, Laura.
She's the CEO and founder of Bone Health Technologies. And I know Laura through work, and they have a FDA approved technology around bone health for whatever comes before osteoporosis.
Osteopenia. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you. See, I do listen in pitch calls.
Great. Oh, you definitely
Yeah, actually,
do.
I'm part of the HBS New York Angels, and we listen to the brief pitch, and I'm looking for the longer story also. So I think Laura has a fantastic story. So good luck to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Sure. Mushmi?
Hi, everyone. This is Mushmi. I actually am a PLD 2023, just like Fatia. Good to see you. Sorry, can be on camera right now, but I am in urgent care space. So I started my career in finance. And then about 12 years ago, I became an entrepreneur and started my own urgent care. So expanded into 2 locations now. And I'm interested in learning about technology and the impact of AI in this urgent care space. Really excited to join this group of wonderful women and hope to connect in person at one of your New York events. Thank you.
Thank you, Mushmi. Katie, you haven't gone yet. Katie.
I haven't gone.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Katie Arneson, MBA 2020. Similar to Renata, most of my career background is actually in consumer and retail, but I'm now new organization focused on solving the U.S. nursing shortage. So we're called Beata Education. We're a spinoff of Beata Home Healthcare. If any of you are familiar with that bigger home health organization. So happy to be here.
Thank you. Last but not least, I only see DC, so I don't know your name.
Hi, yes, Dara Cook. Thank you so much. It's good to see you again.
Sarah.
Yes, so Dara Cook, I was GMP 2019. I run a maternal health company called Expect, and we are fitness for pregnancy and postnatal, and the only platform where every workout is approved by OBGYNs. And we have contracts with the city of Boston, the Harvard Pilgrim and Tufts plans. And yeah, just happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Did anyone not introduce themselves? I think we're all done it, except for our speakers, of course. Maybe now we should turn it over to the Q&A part of it. So I really want to thank again Abby and excuse me, Abby and Linda for joining us. Maybe I'll start by painting a would you like to say a few words about your firms first? Since everybody introduced themselves except yourself, maybe let's do that to give some context, and then I'll start asking some questions. So, Abby, please.
I have to say, I've never had more school pride than I do right now. I mean, whenever I hang out with HBS women, I don't know about you guys, but I'm always so impressed. And not just the HBS piece, but just impressed that that's not the important part. The important part is the community, the intellect, the curiosity, the impact. And there's nothing that has been more breakout for my career than spending time in healthcare, because it really pulls together all the things that make for a really challenging and interesting career. I started Primetime Partners, MBA 2001. I started Primetime Partners as a venture fund focused on this demographic shift of an older population in 2020. So I'm new to venture. I'm new to healthcare. And it's been the steepest, best learning curve of my life. And what we ended up realizing while the thesis for the fund was to be a horizontal firm focused on understanding an older consumer and what that person needs and what's going to, all we need around it. We ended up effectively becoming 2/3 a health tech fund. No life sciences, no biotech, but really what sits adjacent to that in health tech, which is data and infrastructure, tech-enabled services, and digital health is 2/3 of our investing. We do seed to Series A. We had a $50 million fund one, which we deployed into 36 businesses. We are now finishing fundraising for and investing out of a fund two. And we are a team of 5 based in New York City. I do owe my success to HBS to some degree because my business partner, Alan Patrikoff, who has been an investor starting Apex, the private equity firm, and then Greycroft. While I knew him because I started a business with Ariana Huffington 10 years ago or almost called Thrive Global. He was on my cap table, but it was in having brunch with my business school classmate, 01 John Patrikoff, where I told him I was going to start a venture fund focused on aging. And he's like, no shit, that's what my dad wants to do. And so again, I met my husband through HBS. I met my business partner through HBS. So, it does, I don't know, the ROI has been pretty good.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Great.
Linda?
So I'm married to an architect, not somebody from HBS. So
No, I got introduced to him through somebody.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I'm Linda Greub. I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my whole career has been in and around healthcare, but mostly investing or doing business development, mergers and acquisitions. So we started Avestria Ventures in 2018. We did it because we had been investing our own capital, and our beta fund was very broad, but it was all female founders. And in the course of doing that fund, first of all, I learned I can only do healthcare. Healthcare is complicated enough for me, and so I don't try to go outside of that. And then the other thing that we learned was the vast majority of the venture capital community really did not understand the gap in innovation for women's health. There's been such misunderstanding for so long about how different a female's biology is from a male's biology. And that we all know, that's at the science level and at the medical school level that there's been this misunderstanding. So we felt like it was just a great business opportunity. We had a home run with Surbi Sarna's Envision, and that enabled us to have the capital to start Avestria. We invest in companies that are working to improve women's health. We try to get in as early as possible. Sometimes that means pre-seed, sometimes that means Series A. We're a small fund. Because my partner Tracy Dooley went to USC and got a biomedical engineering degree, and then went to Stanford to get an MD. So she brings sort of the hands-on side. My jobs have always been in investing, really. And I worked at Novartis Diagnostics, and I worked at Applied Biosystems, which is now part of Thermo, and I've done VC-backed startups. So I did a little bit of everything. We'll invest in therapeutics, diagnostics, devices, digital health services, or life science tools. Right now, we're doing very little in therapeutics because we're a small fund, and it really takes a long time to get the therapeutics through to exit. So, but we do have a couple of investments in that space. Almost all, so maybe 90% of our investments have female founders. And in fact, the data shows that if you look at women's health companies, 75% of the founders are female, which isn't surprising because that's how they identify the unmet need, right? They've usually experienced something in their own lives or in someone's close to them, their life. And we try as best, we try to get in very early because we're a small fund. We try to bring our connections to the table and be helpful to the entrepreneurs. Our philosophy is we work for you as an entrepreneur, and the goal is to have you leverage our resources. And that's what we do. Fund one, we had 2 exits really quickly. One returned half the fund, and then we raised fund 2, and we're investing out of fund 2 now. That's us.
Thank you. Wonderful. So the landscape for venture funding in 2024 was sort of, putting AI aside, not very bright. And now we have, we're into 2025 with a lot of, a bit of a, political headwinds, let's just put it this way, a lot going on from different aspects. So can you provide a sense for how do you see things today, given what's going on, maybe at a micro level in the venture, at least in the early stage series, to Series A where you are, and more specifically in your space, women health, elderly care, how do the dynamics within, in terms of the environment, at least. Either of you.
Do you want to start, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Linda.
So, I think we all know that in 2022, the Fed started raising interest rates, and that really put the kibosh on the venture capital community, right? When capital is essentially free, people don't mind locking it up for 10 years, and it's a smart decision. Since rates started going up, venture has had to compete with other asset classes, and there's been very little new funds going into venture capital, and more importantly, there have been very, very few exits. As the cost of capital has increased, we've seen many less acquisitions because you can't borrow money to do the acquisition. That's one reason why. And so the capital is largely locked up. You're seeing more and more venture capitalists who have companies in their existing portfolio, and they may have intended to be seed investors. And now what's happening is they also have to be Series A investors. And the big one we've seen is Series A investors never thought they were going to have to be Series B investors, but essentially they are. Or what a lot of companies have done is there's Series A1, A2, A3, A4. So trying to stretch it out just because new investors are not coming in. Everybody's just taking care of their own at this point. So again, we're just not seeing exits. And, when the Fed cut rates last fall, there was sort of a glimmer of hope. And now I think most people feel like we're still in a highly inflationary environment. So I don't think JP Morgan, the weather was great. People were upbeat, but they might have been upbeat sort of on the surface. I don't think anyone feels like the fundamentals have changed yet for the industry overall. And again, that you have to exclude AI a little bit from that. And also you have to remember, I do healthcare and life sciences focused on women's health. And now things are really confused in the healthcare life science world with the new administration. So there's just a lot of uncertainty. So given that we're not seeing a big rush ahead, that doesn't mean we won't in 3 months. We're not seeing it now.
Thank you. And earlier today, the inflation news was not very welcome. It sounds like we're going the wrong direction, at least from a CPI perspective. But okay, Abby?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been doom and gloom for being a venture GP in terms of raising capital, to Linda's point. However, it is a great time to be putting capital to work as an investor over the 25 vintage and beyond. And that is because, at least I can just speak about healthcare companies and many fintech, so many entrepreneurs have been waiting to raise money because they haven't liked either the valuations, or a lot of venture investors haven't been deploying capital. They've been waiting to see what's going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with the election, all these things. And so you've got this backlog of deals happening, not just the IPO level, which we all know is been waiting to happen, but also backlog of deals at every stage of investing. And what that means as someone deploying capital is that we are seeing deals that are coming up for air that are at much more attractive valuations than they were at the height of COVID, digital healthcare hysteria in the 2021-22 vintage. So I think it is, while it's a hard time to be a venture investor because the asset class is out of favor, it will be, for those that are deploying capital and have the capital, it's a very good vintage. So I would say that. I would also say in healthcare, because the number of, and I can talk about the health tech, not the biotech side, which Linda might be familiar with, but both sides have been benefiting from technology, from AI. The number of startups, it's like exploded. So when we started, we saw maybe 500 companies a year that were within our thesis and stage. We're now on track to see 900 a year. Like, it's just, there's so many businesses, which is great. Most of them will not ultimately make it through, but it means, again, that we're seeing a lot of innovation. And so that's also good for the industry. So I'm very bullish on this. The last thing I'll say is that there's absolute bifurcation between the mega funds. These are the Andreessens, NEA, Insight, General Catalyst, Bessemer, Excel, like all the names you know about, like the mega funds that have multi-billion dollars, and the niche or thematic or specialized funds. And people in the middle are having a problem, but I think you can play on either side of the barbell. but it definitely, the mega funds make it a lot harder to do what we do because they can just spray and pray, as the term is, and get deals and just come in over the top. And so, you know, it does mean that you need to have a reason to be, not just have capital.
Okay. Just to inject a note of optimism, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's on the deal side, more the M&A side, and apparently there's beginning to be more activity on the exits, not so much IPOs, but more companies being acquired, especially on the operations side of healthcare, more the cost reduction side of healthcare. I know that's not your areas, but at least there's a bit of optimism in some parts of the, you know. Sorry, you're saying something, Abby?
No, I'm nodding. Yes, agreed.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, thanks. All right. Since you talked about AI, I'm just curious because I'm hearing this, you know, now that entrepreneurs can sort of, AI can be such a useful way, even if it's the company is not an AI company, but to use AI to sort of prototype faster, develop things faster, you need to write less code and so on. Do you see the need, entrepreneurs needing to raise less money just because now things can be much more efficient with AI? Or that's not, you're not seeing that yet?
For me, our companies, it's not so much that they can be more efficient with AI, but they're able to do things that they couldn't have done before. So that's definitely having. One of our companies, Radiant Oximetry, is developing a fetal oximeter. And in order for there to do their trials, so what they needed to find a way to simulate a fetus being in without oxygen. And you can think about, you can't do that trial, right? I mean, what are you going to do? So they're able to use what they call digital twins to create data with AI that is being accepted by the FDA. So they never could have done that before.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think actually, if anything is happening, it's the other way around, which is companies are building products faster so that they're raising at a younger stage more capital for go-to-market, because they're able to build faster, get pilots with a health system, with a senior care organization. And they're saying, okay, instead of raising 2 to 3 million to develop our product, we built the product already, we're going to raise 4 to 5. So like I'm not sure that's statistically relevant. It's either they're raising the same or more, not the other way around.
Okay.
It's because it's compressed the time from pre-seed to Series A.
Got it. Interesting. Okay. Regarding elderly care, which I think is your area of focus, Abby, I mean, this has been a very hot area in terms of, you know, only today in the journal, they're talking about shortage of, you know, specialized, you know, senior care, housing and things like that. There's a lot of use for technology to improve. And I mean, specifically in elder care, there's going to be even more stress because caregivers are going to be there's going to be even less availability of caregivers, especially with the immigration issues going on and so on. So do you see specific trends within this space of elderly care in terms of like winning business models, areas where technology is actually improving care delivery models? Just wanted to sort of get a little bit more of a sense of what's the dynamics within that space.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to maybe change the terminology, because when we started the fund, it was focused on older adults, and which now we've kind of bucketed as boomers and seniors, so people 50 and over. So many of us, including myself, qualify. But really what we're talking about is healthy aging. And so that is, and the reason that's so important is that Medicare for those age 65 and older is $1 trillion expense growing at 8% a year. It may not be $1 trillion expense in the next 4 years. We'll see what happens, but it's a runaway train. And businesses that can, the business case is reducing that cost of care. That is always the business case. Like, it doesn't matter how you talk about it. You can talk about medical loss ratios, efficiencies. Like, it's never about qualities. Oh, the business case is always going to be reducing cost of care, which may be great if quality is part of it, but it's a cost game. And so where we see technology playing in that, in a highly fragmented healthcare system, is what I've started terming the 3 Ps, which is only laughable because I'm with this audience. So you can understand I have humility with saying that. And that is around precision, prediction, and productivity. So productivity is easy, right? We all know that AI is going to improve workflows, care planning, manual tasks will be automated, all of that productivity, all that stuff all makes sense. It's happened in a lot of industries. So productivity in healthcare and technology, I don't need to touch upon that. And full stop. I think on precision, and this is where I think someone, I forget which of the people here is focused on medical tourism, but the precision piece is that we have a very static healthcare model. Like, even on the prescription drug side, what we know for I'm very obsessed with precision polypharmacy, which is a nice way of saying, how do all our medications interact with each other? And so it's a static recommendation of when a pharmaceutical was FDA approved that says, here are the side effects, here's how it's going to clear. But we are at a point of data that we should be able to customize that based on your genomics, your blood work, your gender, all these other things that should come into getting a precision, personalized recommendation of how you need to think about pharmaceuticals, how you need to think about exercise, nutrition. Like, we're already seeing with gut health. I mean, how many startups have we seen around gut health that are all around what your biome is? And the other piece that goes into precision, I'm sorry, I get really excited, so I'll shut up in a second. But like, the other piece that goes into precision is that one of the most amazing byproducts of COVID, I hate to put those words together, is that we all became home test takers. Just think about, you would never have swabbed your nostril before COVID. You would have gone to the doctor. So now we've got levels for glucose. And so we're going to get to the point where looking at some companies where you do blood testing at home, you don't go to Quest Labs, like all of that data about yourself. What are we going to do with that? How are we going to integrate it with the healthcare system to actually improve and lower costs through precision medicine? And that's where some of these newer concierge models, longevity doctors, they're kind of popping up outside the 4 walls of the hospital, but that is definitely an investment area. And then on the prediction side, this is very more like health techie, which is around risk stratification or advanced warning notifications, because our healthcare system is geared towards the sickest 5% that generate 50% of the costs. But the opportunity as we grow as a healthcare system is to go beyond that first 5%. And yes, we got to manage that better. But then what about the next 10%? How do we help that group not move into the 5%? And that's where a lot of the predictive analytics and kind of getting ahead of things is going to come. So when I think about elder care, I actually think about those pieces. And then the last piece I'll talk about is care capacity. We have a care shortage. I'm not sure if Katie already left, but Biata having their nursing program, we have a care shortage, and we're really interested and excited about how to enable family caregivers, how to think about bringing different caregivers into the industries, how to allocate time and resources, like community health workers, social workers. How do we think about care differently? Because we're going to need that from a care capacity. So I could go on and on about our themes, but those are some examples of where we see a lot of volume because it's an urgent pain point that needs to be solved.
Thank you. Yeah. You talked about precision and personalization, and you talked about risk. I mean, to me, they're both powered by the availability now of data, right? You talk about people testing more, and the healthcare system has a lot of data, and hopefully it can be all brought together, which is yet another, there's a lot of data fragmentation. But if there's a way to bring it together, I think that's would be a very powerful
that's what people are, that's what people, and it's interesting. I'll say one last thing. The term for my team that we talk about investments is commercial velocity. Because I think one of the things is, and I think we'd all agree, there's tons of great products that that absolutely work. And Linda, you'd agree, yes, product works. This should exist. But the issue is the commercial channel like who's going to pay for it, and like how do you pull it through? And so the thing I'm seeing different this year versus 2 or 3 years ago, especially in the channels that a lot of our companies sell in, like senior care, home care, ACE, value-based care, et cetera, is that there's such FOMO because of AI in a good way in the C-suite. The boards are all putting pressure on big customers to say, what is your strategy? I'm sure Shania at Pfizer, you cannot have a conversation where people in the big customers, big C, aren't talking about how are you using technology. And so all the data fragmentation, and there's been data tools that have been come and gone, like a graveyard of them over the past decade. The thing I see that's different now that didn't exist before is AI is creating so much FOMO in the C-suite that is opening the customer's interest to start to try stuff. The challenge of the venture investor is there's a lot of people trying stuff, and whether it's actually going to convert from a pilot to like a real piece of infrastructure, that's the part we don't know yet.
Yeah, interesting. Linda, do you want to comment on this? Specific, I think you started to talk a little bit about this, but, specific areas of more momentum within the general space that you focused on. You said assess from therapeutics, you do a lot of focus on the space, broadly on the space.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention about AI, and this is not a company we've invested in, but I heard about it through a course I took at MIT, was there is doing some work where they're doing a lot more monitoring, like in an assisted living facility, for instance. There is monitoring going on so that they can see how frequently somebody moves, and that gives them some indication of how healthy that person is, or or why they're doing things at a certain time, and are they taking their medication? Because that was just, it's one of the few things I've seen that could actually take human costs out of the care component, because I haven't figured out a good answer to that yet, right? So then in terms of areas we're seeing that are exciting, I worked at Novartis Diagnostics for a long time, and because of that, I get diagnostics, but I'm also know a lot of different ways diagnostic companies can fail. So we're seeing a lot going on in diagnostics, but again, we're nervous because it's not an easy area to go into. Devices, we're seeing a fair amount going on in devices as well. Life science tools has been a tough area. Recently, they got a lot of capital in like 2020, and we're not seeing necessarily the progress there that we might have hoped. Do you know, there's stuff happening all the time. Do you know how many companies are trying to find a diagnostic for endometriosis, which God knows we need, but the number of companies is huge. So, we see it like a new one every day, but we actually haven't invested yet because, it's one of those situations where there's so many people competing in the space. It's really unclear what it's going to take to win.
Yeah, another area where I see every day like new is mental health. There's just so much. On the one hand, it's great to have a lot of innovation, but it's like how I'm glad I'm not a venture capital. Like, how do you pick winners?
What in terms of mental health, we've got one company we invested in, and there have been, like we haven't invested in 7 Starling, but that's been sort of a darling in the mental health space. Our issue with mental health is always, first of all, private pay, right? Like, how big is the market that can afford private pay? But then also, what's the scalability in mental health? So the one company we did invest in is Curio Digital Therapeutics, and they're FDA approved, and they've got a therapeutic for postpartum depression. So, and they're very good they've used AI to help them identify the women who are most at risk of developing postpartum depression. And so they identify them, then they do some training work with them early on, so hopefully to prevent postpartum depression. But then once they're in postpartum depression, they work through essentially asynchronous behavioral health training is the best way I think of it. And so that absolutely is scalable. But again, the trouble that we've seen with a lot of the mental health is, who's going to pay for it and how do you scale it?
Yeah, I think the other piece that's been interesting, so we have a couple investments in mental health. One's called Total Life, which is focused on mental health for seniors. And I think one of the things that's been a challenge in some ways is when you're outside of therapeutics, but you're into therapy, is the quality, like, just in terms of like, how do you control for quality? And I think that's been the thing is like, listen, Medicare will pay for 2 sessions a week. So there is a business model there. But how do you actually connect it to outcomes through quality and through tracking? Like, I think that's been one of the challenges in mental health. The piece that I think is interesting is that, especially in the senior population, many people are undiagnosed for depression. Like incidence rate of depression goes up for older adults for a variety of reasons, one of which is loneliness, another is polychronic conditions. It can be tied to hearing loss. It's can be tied to cognitive decline. So one of our companies called Kintsugi, they're pre-FDA approved, but they use voice vibrations through call centers to track engaged depression, to diagnose depression. And so I think that's an area of interest, is both the what the remediation is, but also making sure people are getting diagnosed. And I think that's an area that has been underdiagnosed in older adults. I don't know about other populations, but certainly in that population.
Great. Well, I can keep going on. There's just such a fantastic discussion. I think we would like to take some questions from the audience, and we have one from Jagruti. Is the investment world ready for radically different AI, Gen AI driven business models, or are they more interested in funding incremental innovation?
I will say when it comes to the care side, again, it's different in life sciences and biotech. I think that is a wonderful use case for AI in terms of the whole business process and research side. We are not at a point where the models are good enough that there's not human oversight of recommendation. Like, I've yet to meet a provider or payer who says that we will be diagnosing and creating clinical care plans without a human in the loop. And so to answer about radical, I mean, I think it's pretty radical to be able to combine all these data sets for even just like one point of view on your health. Like, that to me is radical change from where we are right now. To have, as I like to say it, like we talk about in healthcare having a second opinion. The second opinion is going to be either data is the first opinion, AI is the first opinion, or AI is the second opinion. Like, that's pretty radical to think about, that there's going, whereas medicine's been an art and a science, now we're going to have essentially your second opinion on everything is going to be AI based, or the other way around. So I don't think we're ready to give up on a human in the loop in healthcare on the care side of things in some point, but I think it is radical transformation in terms of the way the whole industry is architected, to have data basically replacing humans, and data basically being a piece of the delivery. Sorry, AI being part of the entire delivery. Like, I've talked to startups where they say they're going to have certain protocols or certain patient experiences where they only interact with AI, and other ones where they interact with AI and then a human, and other ones where they interact with the human. And so, like, I just think that's transformative, to have a whole set of actions and a whole set of interactions only with technology.
Yeah, I if I may, I'm advising a company where I think it does have the potential to be a technology doctor, if you will, as opposed to a human in the loop. And I just don't, even though, let's say there's data that it works, I just don't know that culturally socially, emotionally, we're ready for it. So I've definitely been advising, like, maybe take one disease at a time or one use case, but kind of really work your way up to this. And yet the entrepreneur feels like, but this is the whole point of this is it's radical, it's better. I mean, I think we know, like in radiology, AI reads better than humans, right? In pathology, that's also true. So why are we not sort of going in that direction? And I think it's the change management aspect more than likely. But I do think that if we are to not be such an expensive healthcare industry, if we are, I mean, to do prevention, Linda, we need diagnostics. We need really good diagnostics. If we can't pay for those diagnostics, how are we going to get to prevention? So it does seem a little bit of, I think the answers are, have been created. Whether they're going to work at scale, I'm not saying that that's the case, but the answers have been created, and we're just not investing in that, or we're not investing at a high, with a high risk propensity in some of these models. At least that's my sense.
So one thing to think about is, and I mean, maybe the way to think about it is market adoption, right? I mean, for anything, right? And you have to figure out, how is the market going to trust your product?
Right.
And generally, I think if there's no human involved, then, trust is a lot harder to do. And that's one of the things AI is coming up again. Apparently, there's a pretty famous case, and I think it happened in Boston, and they had used, they tried to incorporate what data they could from electronic medical records to determine protocols for care. And what they did is they somehow looked at how often people had been going to the doctor. And they figured out, the AI and the computer scientists figured out that the patients who went to the doctor less often were, didn't need to be treated with the same intensity that the people who had been going to the doctor very often. And this was in place for a number of years at a very large healthcare system. And then what somebody figured out was that the African American population in this area was going to the doctor less often because they had less access, because they had less trust, because they were more concerned financially. That doesn't mean they were less sick than their Caucasian counterparts. So we had AI telling clinicians, oh, don't treat this person because the data shows that they don't need the same level of care as this other person. So AI can go wrong really readily. And that's not even generative AI, right? That's just, are you in fact identifying the correct factors to feed into the algorithm?
Yeah.
So I think that there's a lot of hesitancy about it. And I do think that, certainly radiology or anything to do with a picture or an image is where they're having the most success with AI.
Yeah. No, I agree. Bad data in, bad diagnostics or bad results out. So I'm 100% with you on that one.
Yeah. If I may jump in and just add a couple of things, and I find this fascinating. I love the conversation coming from the healthcare side, and sometimes, wearing different hats. For example, we just launched an AI gamified app in the emotional health and wellness space, and which is pretty technical, mechanical, of the person identifying their emotion and jotting it in. But I also, I'm in the process of advising another company where they're recognizing emotion via visual image and voice recognition to check on the emotion. So it's very interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting. But having participated in several events with Med and AI, I do think there's a great opportunity to be able to integrate and blend and bring everything in together, because I've seen that the physicians really don't know what to do. Oftentimes, some of them have a great idea, but it's more in the SaaS world where AI could be used, but it's like we usually don't think about scaling in a huge way because we're more concerned about our patient day in, day out. on a regular basis. There are some other possibilities to truly scale. But what I want to just share with everyone is I do see an amazing opportunity to be in this space, particularly if we can integrate and kind of bring everybody together on the table so that, if people are starting stuff from the tech side, you do have the medical side and so everybody participates. And for the medical folks to realize how helpful all of this can be. So for example, in dentistry, we studied a case with Lily and Rosa that pertains specifically to the dental space, where actually AI is coming in before any dental technician comes in to see the person first. So I think in medicine, anything that has to do with, images and things like that, I think it's going to be easier. I think the mental health space is a bit tougher because although you can do many screens and pre-screens and all of that, there's a world for each person. So hopefully there's going to be ways in which we could look at the person holistically and try to help them as well. But I do see this amazing opportunity in the health tech world. So just throwing this there, if you've seen the same things where it feels like a little bit disconnected, although there's amazing opportunities to bring in everything together.
No, and I think you raised another point though, which is around people talk about workflows and like how it fits into workflows, but I also think there's a big piece here just around the incentives for adoption. And I think it's the people who have to use the technology don't always like, some want it. So it's like interesting when we talk to a startup where we'll be like, well, the person, like who's actually using this? And are you getting rave reviews from them? Or are you just getting it from the CFO or the CIO or whatever? And so we forget that while we talk about technology, there's still somebody using it, whether it's a consumer or the person who's deploying it. And historically, the providers, the healthcare channel has been technology, anti-technology, because they use Epic in their hospital system. And honestly, everyone, like, there's a reason why healthcare is a 20%, like a 20 NPS of 20. Like, it's not just the users of healthcare, the practitioners themselves hate the technologies they use. Like, I've yet to meet someone who's like, oh, I love Epic. Like, everyone hates it. So, I still think we have an implementation challenge, even if the technology can deliver all these wonderful benefits, it's still going to have friction. And so that's why I always talk to my team about commercial velocity. Like, we are in high friction environments. Like, people talk all the time, I'm sorry, I can go on this, but like how it's amazing that financial services deployed technology in the 90s and 00s. And that's because the only people they had involved were tellers, but everybody else, they just were like, this is what we're doing. Everybody, like, top down, this is the technology we're using. Healthcare is incredibly local, fragmented with a gazillion people involved. It is going to take a lot more time for technology to be implemented because of people. And, but now having said all of that, there's tremendous impetus and interest. And actually, one of the great things is that all our kids are learning ChatGPT in school. Like, that is going to really change. And I'm like, as much as it annoys me when I'm like, who wrote this paper, you or the computer? But the flip side is that they're going to be the ones who are going into the workplace, assuming and demanding that this technology exists for them. So I do think we're at an interesting, I hate to use inflection point, but I'm seeing the friction kind of start over the next decade to start to erode.
Yeah, and I think if anything, I mean, what you said, one of the bright sides of COVID is that even medical providers were forced to use technology. And I think, and it happened very quickly. And I think they started to sort of be more comfortable. And even senior citizens, the older people who we used to think of them as digitally illiterate, they're becoming more savvy. But I think the trick, what you talked about, is to really think of the technology to adapt to the user. Yeah. And to integrate it into existing workflows. There's this famous thing of they used AI for some pre-auth, whatever, but the outcome had to go through a fax machine. So it's just, you have to go within the ecosystem. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. This is such a fantastic conversation, and I really cannot thank enough Abby and Linda and all of you for participating and sharing your thoughts. So thank you again, and for a great conversation.
Can I make a shameless plug for myself and Linda? like the way that great founders, particularly, you know, female founders and things like that, the way they get access to capital is you guys referring them to people like us. So, you know, I keep doing that. I just, again, this is a little bit of girl power, but like women are underrepresented as GPs, they're underrepresented as LPs, they're underrepresented as founders. And you know, I'm sure I can speak for Linda, we are always happy to talk to a founder to help them and share what we know. So just keep the information flowing.
That's great.
Sounds
Thank you.
good. Thank you. Thank
So
you so
much.
much.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care,
This
guys.
was really great.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining.
Great to see you.